right, Salt City Hoops live postcast. Welcome in, everybody, to tonight's adventure. Back-to-back effort from Utah after the great comeback win against Toronto yesterday. Now facing the Knicks on the back-to-back 5:30 Mountain tip time. Lost tonight for the Jazz. It's kind of like the inverse of yesterday a little bit. The Jazz were competitive throughout this game, very tight game throughout. The Jazz never really had a great advantage, though. They did get down by double digits at one point. But they weren't consistently down by double digits as they were yesterday in Toronto. And then the fourth quarter just kind of fell apart. Especially, it was like offensive rebound 3, offensive rebound 3, offensive rebound 3. Oh, and the Jazz are down by 10 points with about 3 minutes to go. So, loss for the Jazz against the Knicks. I'm going to try to do a little bit more casual today. We'll break down the game a little bit. I'm going to pour out the rest of this beer here into this fun glass that I have. I've been drinking a lot of heavy stuff on the postcast recently. These, 11, 12, 13% barrel-aged imperial stouts with vanilla and chocolate and coffee and caramel and salt and all these interesting byproduct flavors or conditioned flavors. And I just we're going back later a little bit. Well, so we're drinking probably my favorite style of beer. Here, this is a milkshake IPA from Four Noses here in Colorado. And I actually don't like IPAs at all, like just standard IPAs. At all, it's kind of a little rough. Like, I can do a hazy or a juicy a little bit, like if I'm at a brewery or something and that's their flagship beer and they don't have really anything else that's tickling me. Like if you're in Seattle or Portland, sometimes you'll be at these breweries where they have like 8 IPAs and like a lager, and I'm like, fine, give me your most flavorful IPA. It's not really my vibe, but milkshake IPAs are just totally different. The first one I ever had was from this brewery in Four Noses, and I haven't, frankly, had any other milkshake IPA that is nearly as good as these. They're quite well renowned. It doesn't have any of that hoppy flavor to it whatsoever. It's really just fruity. Creamy is not the right word for it, but just they call it the strawberry of their Velvet series, and I do think velvety is a great way to describe the mouthfeel of these beers. This is their strawberry banana version, and usually I don't see banana in too many beers. I think it's an underrated flavor to have with beer. And strawberry, the banana's not too forward at all. It's very much like a strawberry little ale here. And we're having fun. 6.5% milkshake IPA. We're having some fun today. This is my second one of these tonight as we enjoy our Saturday night. Saturday beers with you all. Thank you all for joining in the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer as you allow me to introduce every postcast with what the hell am I drinking tonight? So, game tonight. Game story is offensive rebounds. As it is pretty much every loss, and we're going to have to analyze this after the season, what the offensive rebounding is after every loss, and that can be kind of a dumpster way to look at it, because obviously if you perform poorly in an aspect of a basketball game, you are more likely to lose that basketball game. But I do think that there will be a consistent thread that the losses that the Jazz have, their offensive rebounding is pretty much always the culprit, where in several other games it can kind of oscillate as to what the issue may be for other teams. Oh, you weren't shooting well this night, or you had a player go off and they were a poor matchup or whatever. I think you're going to see 65 to 75% of the games that the Jazz lose, they are giving up a very, very, very poor offensive rebound percentage. And by very, very, very poor, I mean the league worst in offensive rebound percentage is... let's see here. It's 30% by whom? So defensively, the worst offensive rebounding allowed team in the league is currently Indiana at 30.4%. And that's matching it out. That's almost 1 out of every 3 misses that the shooting team recovers their own shot. And that's just like too many, right? Average is 26.9%, so almost 1 out of every 4. But 30.4% is the worst in the NBA. And the best offensive rebounding team, like the team that rebounds the best, is Houston at 32.9%. So they're recovering literally 1/3 of their shots that they put up. Of course, they still have an offensive they have an offensive rating of 110, which is 29th in the NBA. So offensive rebounding isn't the end all be all to make yourself a good offense, but it certainly doesn't hurt to just put up points after points after points. That is considered a second possession, right? So that could that does affect maybe their offensive rating a little bit, but hey, they're not a great offense, not a great defense. We know that about Houston. New York is third in offensive rebounding percentage. They rebound 31.3% of their shots, but the Jazz tonight gave up over 40% of the Knicks misses, went right back to the Knicks to shoot it again. The Knicks protected the basketball, or you could, and the inverse part of that is you could say that the Jazz did very little to force turnovers. The Knicks only had 6 turnovers, and they had 20 offensive rebounds. I use percentage because that's better for pace, right? Like you can say like, oh, it's based on pace, what was there rebounding versus just a pure quantity of rebounds. But with that few turnovers and that many offensive rebounds, you end up with a box score, as I pull that screen up, where the Jazz shot 88 field goals and 28 free throws, and the Knicks shot 95 field goals and 38 free throws. That's a ton of free throws, by the way. But 28's that's a healthy amount too. So with the Knicks getting up 10 more free throw attempts and 7 more field goals, and then Jazz lose by 6, right? And it's like, oh, that was close, right? So the Jazz do a decent job of getting up shots and shooting efficiently. They were getting to the rim quite a bit all game today. They had a great little floater range game going today from a lot of players. Talen Horton-Tucker, Jordan Clarkson among them, right? Like doing pretty good. The Jazz don't shoot super well from 3. They shoot 9 of 32 from 3 today. You get 1 of 8 from Clarkson and 3 of 10 from Lauri Markkanen being the main culprits there. You get your 1 of 4 from Sexton, but that can happen. You get 0 of 1 from Fontecchio, that'll happen. But if Clarkson and Markkanen, if they're going to combine for 4 of 18, that's going to really drag down your 3-point shooting. So this could be just like you get a couple offensive rebounds and you shoot a couple more threes, and this is a victory. And that's what kind of feels a little bit more painful about this, because they did protect the basketball okay. 10 turnovers isn't crazy. Talen Horton-Tucker only had 1 turnover in 27 minutes to his 7 assists. We'll talk about Horton-Tucker in a little bit. I don't really care about wins or losses this year, right? I think a lot of people are rooting for Tank. We want this team to lose. The losses don't matter. The wins don't matter. But when we get in these types of games against a team like the Knicks, they're going to be a playoff team. I want to see them win. I want to see them kind of fight for what can be a useful outcome. So maybe I just can't help it. I just like watching the team win. So, and it's not just the quantity of offensive rebounds, it's the way this team gives off offensive rebounds, man. And this could just be the fan in me, because like you can turn on any sort of neutral game and kind of have a different attitude about it, but personally, it's just I've seen so many hands touch basketballs and then it in weird, awkward ways, and it ends up in the hands of the wrong person instead of just straight up like securing the rebound. You got guys just kind of getting fingertips on it and tipping it. We had a point where Colin Sexton was trying to get a rebound over Walker Kessler, and they both fumble it away, and just silly things like that I just feel like that's not useful basketball. That's not useful rebounding, right? And so there's a lot of just slipping the ball out of their fingers, and it's always just falling in the hands of the wrong person. And more importantly and worse for the Jazz, it feels like they don't recover off of these offensive rebounds. The ball is kicked out to a wide open 3-point shooter. It's kicked out to a player streaming downhill, and you already have 2 or 3 Jasmine running down in transition to try to go score a basket on their own, all of a sudden an offensive rebound leads to a 4-on-2 for the opponent, and they just get an easy basket, wide open 3. It's just I can't quite explain it. Like how bad these offensive rebounds feel, which is maybe why it's maybe more of a fan thing. But let's be clear, the Jazz are a bottom 5 team in giving up offensive rebounds. It is a thing. Kelly Olynyk is a miserable rebounder. He's always a culprit, right? Of when Kelly Olynyk is kind of shielding, or with the Jazz playing Markin and Olynyk and Kessler often together, usually Olynyk is guarding maybe a perimeter threat, right? And Olynyk never, ever, ever boxes out or correctly marks a perimeter threat. He alligator arms every rebound. If anyone's in the chat that didn't hear me last night, I was joking that throughout the third quarter yesterday, Kelly Olynyk was kind of weirdly on pace for a triple-double, which is a big deal for the Jazz because we have the NBA's longest drought of not having a player record a regular season triple-double. Ricky Rubio had 10 rebounds and 10 assists in a playoff game, but we haven't had a triple-double since Carlos Boozer against the Seattle Supersonics. I forget what year, but it was a year that the Supersonics existed, right? So getting a triple-double is a big deal for the Jazz. So Kelly Olynyk is on pace for he's got 7 rebounds and 6 assists in the third quarter. I'm like, he might get 4 more assists. He ain't getting 10 rebounds. So he's a culprit for that. Walker Kessler does what he can. I think Kessler is he's a good rebounder. That's a B-level skill for him. I think he's going to get even better as he grows and kind of figures out things and angles and who to mark. He definitely takes a very high school, college, rigid-oriented approach of find the man you're guarding and you prevent him from getting the rebound. And he's okay at doing that. But a guy of Kessler's ability, size, reach, skill, everything about him, Kessler needs to be more like Rudy Gobert of he's not responsible for marking his man and boxing him out and securing the basketball. He should be responsible for just go get the fucking basketball because you can't rely on the rest of your team to do it. You are our defensive rebounder. I think Kessler kind of finds himself in situations where he sees a lot of bodies around him and he ends up giving an offensive rebound to the very guy he was guarding. But you end up in situations where if the perimeter defenders aren't containing the ball or not sending the ball handler where the defense is designed to force them to go, Kessler is helping off of his man. Tonight it was Jericho Sims or Isaiah Hartenstein on the defensive end. And if Kessler is helping early, if that ball handler puts up a shot attempt, Knicks, Jalen Brunson and RJ Barrett, they were shooting a lot of mid-rangers. Julius Randle was acting as a perimeter threat, taking his man off the dribble a few times. If those players are getting into the paint, and Kessler has to help early, right? So the man that he was guarding, the center, Sims or Hartenstein, they are in position to get those offensive rebounds, and they were doing so quite frequently today. And obviously that is on a lot of players to then who is marking Hartenstein or Sims on that front. That is a wing's job or a guard's job, and it just wasn't happening today. Will Hardy postgame did mention that hey, some of the offensive rebounding isn't just effort, right? Our guys want to rebound the basketball. He doesn't really consider effort-based. He thinks that defensively, if you are giving up the first or second thing too early in a defensive possession, your defense has to over-rotate way earlier than it otherwise has to, and it's putting Walker Kessler in precarious positions, or just the other defenders, right? You're over-rotating, and then when the ball goes up and the ball clinks off the rim, everyone's kind of mismatched, and if you want to do the basic high school, college thing of find your man and mark him, you can't even do that. The ball's just in the air, and you're just having guys go for basketballs. And if you're looking at this Jazz roster and you're telling these 5 guys on the court, go get basketballs, there aren't really a lot of guys who can do that. Jordan Clarkson's so bad at tracking a loose ball and making that accelerative lunge to grab that defensive rebound. He never does that. Mike Conley was notoriously terrible at it, and Colin Sexton isn't that much better either. I've talked about Kelly Olynyk being a problem. Walker Kessler is a good 7-foot static basic rebounder, but when it comes to securing defensive rebounds, sometimes if you have a bad defense, it's hard to also be a good rebounding team because you need to rely on just straight up athleticism and verve and guile. And I don't think the Jazz have ever really had that. Like Jared Vanderbilt had the verve and the guile, but not really the athleticism, right? So he always kind of graded out as like an average defensive rebounder. I've seen a couple positive tweets about Jared Vanderbilt today, by the way, which makes me realize that like I really need to check out Lakers Warriors when we get through with this today. They are currently sitting at 98-98, of course, with 4.5 minutes left to go in the game. So I'm sure you guys are thrilled to be here at the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. Listen, instead of Lakers Warriors. We'll get to that game in a moment. But the rebounding was the issue today. Lauri Markkanen was inefficient to start the game. He started off the game 0 of 7 from 3. He finishes 3 of 10. He made his last 3 threes, including one nasty step back, which is something we have not seen from Lauri Markkanen this year. It was end of the shot clock, so he was kind of forced to do it, but it was a very James Harden-esque hard dribble into Julius Randle, followed by dribble, gather, step, take 2 steps back, and he just fired up a fadeaway laser 3-pointer, and it was like, okay, buddy. Combined with he had 3 assists today, which is more than average, right? He's usually with 0 or 1 assist at the end of the game, and he had 5 assists yesterday. He's had some delicious passes, including on the interior yesterday. Without Mike Conley, I like to see a little bit more like, all right, Lauri, you're not just the leader of this team. You're not just this all-star guy. You're not just the league's best possible second banana. Let's see if you can first banana some of the shit and actually do some of the step-back threes. And he took some guys' isolation today and had a couple good mid-range jimmies that looked really good. And, I was kind of excited about Lauri Markkanen today. Even if a lot of his shots didn't go in, he was taking open shots. He was 8 of 10 from the free throw line. Markkanen should be at the line 6 or 8 to 10 times a game. I hate it when he's getting under 8 free throws a game. Today he had 10, 8 of 10. That is very helpful for the Jazz efficiency. Second star goes to Talen Horton-Tucker. I can't believe I'm saying this. You guys know how I feel about him. But if this opportunity, with no Mike Conley and no Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which I think is sneaky important for Talen, Talen got some good praise from Will Hardy postgame. Horton-Tucker's defense was at like a B- level today. I thought his defense on Jalen Brunson was completely adequate. Brunson goes for 38 points today with 14-15 from the free throw line. I think like 6 of those free throws were late, so in just fouling to extend the game type stuff. But I thought Horton-Tucker's defense on Jalen Brunson was like kind of adequate and like acceptable, whereas Sexton's defense and Clarkson's defense was always kind of a problem. Horton-Tucker was fine on that end. And then Horton-Tucker he had one where he kind of fell over and he turned the ball over once. But only 2 fouls for him and 23 points, just attacking, crashing the rim, and not just like flipping the ball up and kind of spinning the ball. He was ramming it down Jericho Sims and Isaiah Hartenstein's throats. Like, he was really getting to the rim. And his 7 assists, he was setting up a lot of the interior players really well. I thought Horton-Tucker was quite impressive today. And it's these kind of games that you think, like, all right, we're going to have Horton-Tucker on the team next year, or at least his contract is going to be on the team next year. So Horton-Tucker is going to go into training camp as a Jazzman if he's not traded in the offseason. And I think, like, all right, this is a game that shows a valid, a credible thing to what he can be, right? And like, all right, every offseason you're gonna look at a guy like Talen Horton-Tucker and say, can you shoot at all? Because it's maybe if you have a situation like Orlando tends to have, where you got Markelle Fultz out there and Fultz can't shoot, and he's got all these other skills though, and you put him around like a bunch of perimeter players, right? And Wendell Carter has a little bit of range at the center position. Mo Bamba has a little bit of range at the center position. Bol Bol doesn't really play center, but he's also he's a large player that you can put out there in weird, funky lineups, and he can shoot the basketball a little bit. If you're going to have Talen Horton-Tucker not be able to shoot, then you're relying on Lauri Markkanen at center lineups, right? And I don't think you really want to rely on that. So the stats say he shot 1 of 3 from 3 today. He was actually 0 of 2 with a half-court shot at the end of halftime, or right before halftime. So, I'm sorry, actually right before the end of the first quarter. I'm sorry. So 0 of 2 from 3 today. One of them was wide open, would really help the Jazz when they were fighting back in the fourth quarter. But it was really just the defense in the fourth quarter, giving up tons of offensive rebounds. Of those 20 offensive rebounds, 7 of them were in the fourth quarter. So the execution defensively just was not happening there tonight from that perspective. Jordan Clarkson was inefficient today, 24 points on 23 shots. I mentioned the 1 of 8 from 3, but it also just felt like he was putting himself in jail. It was a bad Jordan Clarkson game, right? Like, you're looking at this thing, 40 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. I've said 40 minutes in 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and just 24 points to show for it. You needed more from him. Like, this should have been more than a 40-minute. You should have gotten more from Jordan Clarkson these things, because he was just putting himself in jail, and it was kind of a struggle. Walker Kessler had a weird game because he only scored 4 points, had 15 rebounds, only 4 of them offensive, and 2 or 3 from the field, though. It's not like he was, but 0 of 0 from the free throw line. So I didn't walk away from today thinking, Walker Kessler was absent today. He was very active. I thought he didn't have the greatest defensive game because he was jumping and fouling a little bit. He had 3 fouls today, almost all of them on pump fakes. He's got to learn how to stay down for those. And if he wasn't fouling on the pump fakes, then he was jumping early and allowing the ball handler to get easy passes. But I thought he would, after watching the game, I would think he had more than 4 points, but he didn't. I don't really know what to think about that. I think it's not like we had a poor assist night or anything. We had 23 assists. That's totally adequate. And Sexton was looking for interior players. And I can't really say what was up with that. It could be, the Tibbs defensive style does really focus on making sure that you don't get big men scoring interior points today. And I know Udoka Azubuike isn't like the strongest player either, but he had 0 field goal attempts today. So I can totally see how, I'm just having like an immediate post-cast reaction, right? And having a beer with y'all. So I don't immediately know what having to see the tape if they were really swarming Kessler and forcing him to pass it out. But then he only ends up with 1 assist, right? So there's a way for the Jazz to have won this game. I don't think they were quite ready for exactly what they had today. Kelly Olynyk finishes with 11 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and that's entirely expected out of what you're going to get out of Olynyk. Not rebound and not pass, but still end up kind of efficient with a plus-minus of 1. So those are the 3 players I want to talk about today. Markkanen, Taylor Horton-Tucker, and Walker Kessler. Fontecchio got 4 first-half minutes, missed the 3. I really don't see why he didn't play in the second half at all. Agbaji only played 19 minutes. Again, not really sure why he's, you're giving 30-plus minutes to Jordan Clarkson playing 40 minutes. I just don't see why you're not having Agbaji out there either. Agbaji got roasted pretty bad in the fourth quarter by Jalen Brunson, but I thought a lineup of Sexton and Agbaji, Horton-Tucker, Kessler, and Markkanen would have worked pretty well. And that involves no Jordan Clarkson. If you have Jordan Clarkson out there, I guess you have to say Agbaji in that instance, but there's more than 19 minutes available for him, I think. Obviously, you're giving 27 minutes to Taylor Horton-Tucker because of how well he played. We had 10 minutes overlap of Sexton and Horton-Tucker today. I think that's a really nice thing, is have 2 like point guard-ish type players that are not pure distributors. I think would be really useful. So that, I think, will conclude what I have to say about this game. Really appreciate y'all joining for the Salt City Hoops Live postcast and beer. This is a short little one, Saturday night. Let's get back to the games. We got Dallas in Sacramento today. We got Lakers and Warriors coming down to the wire. The Jazz lose on a back-to-back against the Knicks. They cannot rebound the basketball. They give up 20 offensive rebounds to the Knicks, a 40% offensive rebounding percentage, which is miserable. And the Knicks only have 6 turnovers, so you end up with the Knicks having 7 more field goal attempts and 10 more free throw attempts, and they win by 6, and that's going to be the story of the game. Markkanen, not his most efficient night, but don't have a problem with how he played today. 9 of 23, 8 of 10 from the free throw line for 29 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Kessler didn't score a lot. Could have been the good defense that the Knicks were deploying. 4 points, 15 rebounds. Clarkson inefficient. Talen Horton-Tucker wonderful off the bench in a distribution role. 23 points, 7 assists with only 1 turnover. We got the Pacers on Monday. We'll do another postcast then. For now, let's have another beer, and I'll catch you all another time. Good night.